It was as I was running to the operating room, panicked after hearing my husband was in critical condition. Suddenly, a nurse grabbed me. "Hide and trust me," she whispered. I obeyed, concealing myself in an adjacent room. 10 minutes later, the door opened, and what I saw froze my blood. It turns out that night, it was raining as if the sky wanted to pour out all its sorrow. The wall clock in Emily's downtown Chicago condo had just struck midnight. Emily, dressed in a long, comfortable pajama set, couldn't stand still. She paced the living room, checking the silent cell phone resting on the coffee table again and again. Her husband, Michael, hadn't come home yet. It wasn't the first time. Of course, the major construction project Michael was managing often required him to work late. But tonight felt different. A strange unease had settled in her chest, as cold and penetrating as the night air. They had had a small argument earlier that afternoon. It was nothing serious, just a matter of money. Emily had asked Michael to cut back on some of his more lavish spending, but he had reacted with irritation, saying she didn't understand the pressure of his job. Normally, on a night like this, Michael would have sent a text, "Still on site," or "Traffic is a nightmare, don't wait up." But tonight, his phone remained silent. Emily had called him 3 times. The first time it rang, but he didn't answer. The second and third calls went straight to voicemail. His battery must have died. Emily tried to reassure herself, but the bad feeling wouldn't go away. The rain outside intensified. Its sound was like the relentless beat of a war drum. Emily went to the window and pulled back the curtains. The street below was wet and glistening, empty. She hugged herself, feeling a chill. She thought of her mother-in-law, who always worried excessively whenever Michael was late. Luckily, she didn't live with them. Otherwise, the atmosphere would have been much more tense. At exactly 12:30 a.m., the sharp ring of the landline shattered the silence. In the midnight quiet, the sound was so loud that Emily jumped. Her heart immediately began to pound. The house phone almost never rang. With a trembling hand, she picked up the receiver. "Hello," her voice sounded choked. "Am I speaking with Mrs. Emily, wife of Mr. Michael?" said a voice on the other end of the line, monotone, professional, and terribly cold. "Yes, this is she. Has something happened to my husband?" Emily asked, gripping the receiver tightly. Please remain calm. Your husband, Mr. Michael, has been in a serious traffic accident on the I-90 expressway. An ambulance just brought him to Lakeshore General Hospital. His condition is critical. They are taking him into emergency surgery right now." Emily's world seemed to stop. The receiver felt slippery in her hand. "Critical surgery," she whispered. "Yes, our hospital director, Dr. Alan Bennett, is going to lead the operation. It would be best if you came to the hospital immediately." The voice continued, but Emily barely heard it. Dr. Alan Bennett. Emily knew that name. Dr. Bennett was the family physician Michael trusted, whom he respected enormously. This provided a slight comfort, but the word critical kept echoing in her head. Yes, I'm on my way now." Emily hung up without waiting for a reply. For a few seconds, she stood there paralyzed. Her legs felt weak. No, this can't be happening. It's a nightmare. Her husband, Michael, the strong man who always seemed invincible, was now in critical condition. Her brain ordered her body to move, but it refused. Then a jolt of adrenaline shot through her. She grabbed a long coat hanging by the door. She didn't care about her appearance, not even changing. Out of her pajamas, car keys, wallet, that was all she could think about. She ran out of the condo and took the elevator, feeling completely empty. The rain hit her cold cheeks as soon as she stepped out of the building. Emily ran to her car in the parking garage. Her hands were shaking so much that she struggled to insert the key into the lock. On the third try, the door finally opened. She started the engine and floored the gas pedal without waiting for it to warm up. The drive to Lakeshore General Hospital normally took 30 minutes, but that night, in the torrential rain and blinded by panic, the journey felt like an eternity. She drove like a maniac. Tears mixed with the water on the windshield, blurring her vision. The wipers worked frantically, but not fast enough to clear the torrent of water and tears. Her thoughts jumped from one place to another. The image of Michael laughing at dinner last week. The image of Michael angry during their argument that afternoon. Guilt stabbed at her. Why had she gotten angry over money? What if that had been their last conversation? Oh, God, save him. Please save my husband, Emily repeated over and over in a prayer, her lips trembling. She no longer cared about running red lights or dangerously overtaking other cars. All she wanted was to get there and see Michael, and confirmed that the word critical had been a mistake. Finally, the imposing white building of Lakeshore General Hospital appeared before her. She parked the car haphazardly in the emergency zone, ignoring the shouts of a security guard. She ran into the emergency room lobby, breathless, her clothes soaked with rain and tears. My husband, Michael. A car accident, she yelled to the nurse at the information desk. The nurse checked her computer. Michael, yes, they've taken him up to the 4th floor, the surgical area. Take that elevator and turn left. Operating room number 3, thank you. Emily didn't waste a second. She pressed the elevator button impatiently. The wait felt eternal. She decided to run up the emergency stairs. She climbed the 4 floors without stopping, her heart about to burst. She reached the 4th floor. The hallway was silent, sterile, and smelled of that sharp disinfectant odor she had always hated about hospitals. The corridor was long and somber, lit only by white fluorescent lights. As she turned left, she saw it at the end of the hall, a set of steel double doors. Above them, a red light shone brightly next to words that froze her blood. All 3. In surgery, Michael was in there fighting for his life. Emily started running again, tears welling up once more. She had to get in. She had to see him. She reached out her violently trembling hand, ready to push open that cold steel door. Emily's hand was just inches from the cold steel surface. She could feel the chill of the air conditioning emanating from the other side. She took a deep breath, preparing to burst in. She was ready to face anything to be by Michael's side. Just as her fingertips brushed the metal, a firm hand grabbed her arm from the side. Don't do it. Emily let out a small cry and turned, startled. A young nurse was looking at her with frightened eyes. The nurse was wearing impeccable blue surgical scrubs, a surgical mask hanging around her neck. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with a terrifying urgency. Her ID badge read Clara RN. You're Michael's wife, right? The nurse whispered quickly, her voice low and desperate. Emily nodded in a panic, trying to pull away from the nurse's grip. Yes, my husband is in there. I have to go in. Let me go. No. Nurse Clara held her tighter, pulling her away from the door. You can't go in. They must not know you're here. It's very important. Emily frowned. For a moment, confusion overcame her panic. What do you mean? Who are they? My husband is in critical condition. Listen to me. Clara's eyes locked onto Emily's, pleading. I know this is going to sound crazy, but this isn't a rescue operation. It's a trap. That word petrified Emily. A trap? What does that mean? Dr. Bennett is in there. That's precisely the problem. Clara hissed. There's no time for explanations. You have to hide right now. Clara pulled on Emily, who was still dazed. She pointed to a dark wooden door across the hall, slightly hidden behind a vending machine. The door had no sign. It looked like a supply closet or a utility room. Get in there. It's a staff locker room that's barely used at night. Lock the door from the inside. Whatever you hear, don't make a sound. Don't come out until I come get you. Whatever happens, do not come out. Emily's mind was spinning. None of this made sense. A nurse was telling her to hide from her husband's surgery, calling it a trap, but the sheer terror in Clara's eyes was too real. It wasn't an act. Something was very wrong in this hospital behind that operating room door. Why should I trust you? Emily whispered, her voice trembling between fear and anger. Because I'm the only one who saw your husband's real medical file before Dr. Bennett changed it. Clara said quickly. He's not in critical condition from the accident. Quick, they could come out at Any moment. That last sentence worked. Clara practically pushed Emily across the hall. With her mind in chaos, Emily followed. She opened the locker room door. It was dark and smelled stale of old coffee and sweat. Clara pushed her inside. "Lock it and trust me," she whispered one last time before quietly closing the door from the outside. Emily heard the soft click of the door closing. She was alone in complete darkness. She fumbled for the lock on the handle and turned it. Her heart was beating so hard it hurt her chest. She was short of breath. She leaned against the door trying to process what had just happened. Hide. Trap. Fake file. Dr. Bennett. Emily slid down to the cold floor. The room was only lit by a faint sliver of light filtering from under the door. She could make out the silhouettes of rows of metal lockers around her. She hugged her knees, trying to stop the violent tremors that shook her body. What was happening? Was this Nurse Clara insane? Or had she just saved her life? Her thoughts returned to Michael if he wasn't in critical condition. Where was he? What were they doing in that operating room? Emily silently crawled to the door and pressed her ear against the wood. Silence. The hallway outside was deserted. She heard nothing but the thunderous beat of her own heart. She peered through the keyhole but could only see the wall of the hallway opposite. She checked the time on her cell phone. 1 a.m. time seemed to crawl. Every second felt like an hour. She was alone in the dark, listening to a terrifying silence. Her mind filled with the worst possible scenarios. What if Nurse Clara had locked her in here? What if Michael really needed her? She had to trust her gut. And her gut told her that Clara's eyes were sincere. She waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, straining her ears, catching every faint sound. Distant footsteps down the hall, the hum of an ice machine, but nothing from or 3, 5 minutes. She was starting to feel suffocated. The room was claustrophobic. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run out and break down. That operating room door. 7 minutes she prayed in her mind, no longer just for Michael, but for herself as well. She felt like a rat in a trap. 10 minutes. The longest 10 minutes of her life. Suddenly, she heard a distinct click from the other side, not at her door but down the hall. Emily held her breath. She pressed her eye to the keyhole, but the angle was wrong. She shifted, looking for a crack in the door's hinges. Through the narrow gap between the door and the frame, she could see the red light above or 3 had gone out. The operation was over. Then Emily heard a soft hiss. The steel doors of the operating room were opening. The steel doors of the operating room hissed open silently. In the stillness of the sterile hallway, the sound was like a glacier cracking apart. Emily held her breath, her entire body tense behind the door of the dark locker room. She kept her eye fixed on the narrow gap between the door and the frame, her only window to a world that had just been turned upside down. The first figure to emerge was Dr. Bennett. He was still in his blue surgical scrubs, but he had already pulled his mask down to his neck. He didn't look like a doctor who had just fought for a patient's life. He didn't look tired or stressed or sad. He looked relaxed, his movements methodical. He was peeling off a pair of stained rubber gloves stained with what Emily now knew was fake blood. She felt the first wave of nausea. Then a second figure appeared. Emily expected a gurney, a helpless body covered by a blanket. She expected the beep of a heart monitor. What she saw sent ice through her veins. It was Michael, her husband. Michael wasn't lying down. He wasn't being pushed on a gurney. Michael was walking. He walked out of the operating room on his own 2 feet. He too was wearing blue surgical scrubs as if he were part of the team and not the patient. He stretched, rolling his neck from side to side as if he had been sitting for too long. He was healthy, strong, and completely unharmed. Emily covered her mouth with both hands. A desperate sob almost escaped her throat. This was impossible. It was a hallucination. It had to be the effect of shock and panic. And then a third person came out, a woman. She was tall, slender, with long blonde hair, and under her doctor's coat, she wore an elegant cocktail dress. Emily recognized her instantly. Jessica, Michael's personal assistant, the one who always looked at her with disdain at company events. Michael had always told Emily her jealousy was baseless. It turned out Emily wasn't blind, she had just been naive. The plan worked perfectly. Michael's voice sounded sharp in the silent hallway. It was deep and calm, without the slightest tremor of pain. Emily felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Dr. Bennett chuckled as he tossed the gloves into a biohazard bin. Of course, it worked. The ER staff is on my payroll. The fake accident report is in the system. The phony ambulance did its job officially right now. Mr. Michael has suffered a massive internal hemorrhage. I can't wait to see Emily's face, said Jessica, her voice like the hiss of a snake. She handed Michael a bottle of water. She must be on her way now, crying her eyes out, panicking. Poor fool. Michael laughed. He laughed. That laugh that once always reassured Emily now sounded like a demon's. She'll be completely devastated. She's so stupid. Emily bit down on the palm of her hand. The physical pain was nothing compared to the agony in her heart. They hadn't just betrayed her, they were mocking her. They had turned her into the punchline of their macabre plan. The important thing is that when she arrives, Dr. Bennett intervened, his tone turning serious again. We have to play our parts. Michael, you need to get to the recovery room. Quick, lie down. We'll hook you up to the 4 and the monitors. You have to look weak but stable. Post-op. I know, Michael said, rolling his eyes. I'm weak, but thanks to this great doctor, I've survived. I will meet Emily in the waiting area. Dr. Bennett continued. I'll give her the good news and the bad news. The surgery was a success. The bleeding is stopped. But, he paused dramatically. But, Jessica asked, her eyes shining with anticipation. But, Dr. Bennett said, a slight smile playing on his lips, I'll tell her that during the surgery, we found something else. A very dangerous blood clot near the liver. I'll tell her I need her signature for a second procedure tomorrow morning. A very urgent and high-risk internal cleanup procedure. Of course, Michael added with a malicious grin. Exactly. Dr. Bennett nodded. A procedure with a very high risk of complications with the anesthesia. If something were to happen to her on the operating table, it would be a shame, but we would have done everything we could. Emily finally understood. Everything clicked into place. The target wasn't Michael. The accident wasn't real. It was all a setup for her. Her mind flashed back 3 weeks. Michael had come home with a stack of papers for a new multi-million-dollar life insurance policy. Emily had asked why they needed a new one. He said it was to secure their retirement, their future. Emily remembered joking, why am I the one being insured? It should be you with how dangerous your work is on the construction sites. Michael had just laughed and said, it's part of an investment package, honey, just sign. And Emily, trusting as always, had signed. She had just signed her own death warrant, and the argument that afternoon hadn't been about spending. Emily had complained that the premium for the new insurance was too expensive. She had asked Michael to cancel it. No wonder he had gotten so angry. Emily unknowingly was ruining his murder plot. And when she doesn't wake up from the operating table, Michael's voice pulled her from her horrifying thoughts. The insurance payout is millions. We can leave this country and start a new life in Switzerland. Jessica giggled and hung on Michael's arm. I've already booked the tickets to Zurich. The 3 of them, her husband, his mistress, and her family doctor. The 3 of them had planned her murder in such detail in the place that should be the safest in the world, a hospital. Emily's blood was no longer cold. It began to boil. The fear that had paralyzed her was slowly transforming into something else, something cold, hard, and sharp. Fury. She watched the 3 of them walk calmly down the hall away from the operating room. They probably turned the corner for the elevator to the recovery area. The sound of their footsteps faded. The hallway fell silent again. Emily leaned against the door, her body trembling violently, but it was no longer from fear. She was shaking with pure rage. She was trapped alone in a dark and suffocating locker room while her walled murderers were on the same floor waiting for her to fall into their trap. She had to get out of there. But how? Suddenly, She heard a sound at her door, not from the hallway. A soft click. Someone was using a key from the outside. Emily froze. Her heart stopped. They know I'm here. Jessica, Michael, Dr. Bennett. They realized someone was listening. They've come back for me. The doorknob turned slowly. The door creaked open. A sliver of light from the hallway pierced the darkness, blinding Emily. A small figure in blue scrubs stepped inside quickly. Mrs. Emily, she whispered. A wave of relief so immense washed over Emily that her legs almost gave out. It was Nurse Clara. Clara quickly closed the door and locked it again from the inside. She leaned against it, panting in the dim light, filtering from under the door. Her face was as pale as a ghost. Did you see them, Clara asked, her voice trembling. Emily couldn't speak. She could only nod. Tears of rage and betrayal finally rolled down her cheeks. Did you hear their conversation? Clara insisted. Emily nodded again. Everything, she whispered hoarsely. The insurance, the fake surgery, the plan they have for me tomorrow. Clara closed her eyes for a moment as if sharing the pain. My God, I suspected it, but to hear it. Why are you helping me? Emily asked, looking at the young nurse. You're risking everything. Clara sat on the floor next to Emily and took a deep breath. I've been suspicious of Dr. Bennett for a long time. Ever since I was a new nurse in the O administration. Emily listened, clinging to Clara's arm as if it were the only anchor in her newly shattered world. He's not a doctor, Clara said quietly, her gaze lost on the lockers opposite them. He's a butcher. His specialty is accidents on the operating table. He looks for wealthy patients with large insurance policies or elderly patients with no family. He schedules a simple surgery. Then during the operation, there are complications, a fatal reaction to anesthesia, an unexpected hemorrhage, something that can never be proven as medical malpractice. The patient dies, Clara continued, her voice hardening. The insurance pays out, and somehow Dr. Bennett always receives a generous donation for his research a few weeks later. He's a despicable human being. But how did you know about Michael? About me? Emily asked. Tonight I was on duty on the surgical floor, Clara explained. I saw the emergency surgery scheduled under Michael's name. The code was blunt abdominal trauma, but something was off. There was no backup data from the ER. Normally, a patient's data from the emergency room is automatically fed in. This was blank. It was as if this patient had appeared out of thin air in front of the O. A chill ran down Emily's spine. Out of curiosity, Clara continued, I used my access to check the system records. I saw that Dr. Bennett himself had manually entered the data from his office computer. Something highly unusual for such a prestigious surgeon. So, I did something reckless. I knew his office access code. An hour ago, while he was preparing for the surgery, I snuck in. I had to know what he was hiding. Clara's eyes gleamed. In a locked drawer in his desk, I found the real file under Michael's name. It wasn't accident data. It was a report from a full physical 2 days ago. The result was perfect absolute health. Of course he was, Emily thought bitterly. And in the same drawer, Clara's voice dropped even lower. Was your file, a copy of the new life insurance policy? The amount was astronomical, and at the bottom in the advising physician section was Dr. Bennett's name. It all fit together. The fake accident, the fake surgery, and the plan for a second deadly operation for Emily. I knew I didn't have much time. Nurse Clara said, I knew they would call you. I didn't know what their plan was, but I knew you couldn't meet them before you knew the truth. I ran to the hallway hoping I could intercept you, and luckily I did. Emily squeezed the nurse's hand. You saved my life, Clara. Not yet, Clara said. Seriously, we're just getting started. They know you're coming. They're waiting for you. What do I do? Emily asked, feeling the panic creep back in. I can't act. I can't look Michael in the face and pretend to be sad. You have to, Clara said firmly. You have to play your part just like they are playing theirs right now. They will have moved Michael to the recovery room at the end of this hall. They will call you any minute. You have to pretend to be devastated, sad, relieved that he survived. Cry. Clara's instructions were fast and precise. When they give you the papers for tomorrow's operation, you have to refuse. If I refuse, they'll suspect something. Don't refuse outright. Say you're in shock, that you need time to think, that you have to call his mother first. Any excuse. The important thing is that you don't sign anything tonight. We need time. Time for what? Emily asked. To get physical evidence, Clara said. We can't just run. They will hunt you down. We can't go to the police with just our story. They'll say you're a hysterical woman. We need irrefutable proof. What proof? First, the real health report for Michael that I saw in Dr. Bennett's office. Second, the file for Michael's fake surgery in the system. And third, the security camera footage. Emily's eyes widened. Security cameras? Yes. I'm sure Michael didn't arrive at this hospital in an ambulance. Clara said he came on his own. He most likely parked in the staff's underground parking garage, which is more secluded. If we can get the security footage from tonight of him walking calmly into the hospital, we'll shatter their whole accident alibi. Dr. Bennett's office is in the basement, Emily said, her brain starting to work. Correct. Next to the records room and the server room for the cameras, Nurse Clara confirmed. It's his den. Nurse Clara pulled a white keycard from her pocket. This is a spare master keycard. I swiped it from the reception desk earlier, but there's a problem. The basement hallway is monitored by cameras, and Dr. Bennett often monitors them himself from his computer. Emily looked at the card in Clara's hand. It felt like it weighed a ton. I'll create a distraction, Clara said. I'm going to trigger the fire alarm on an upper floor. That will keep all the security guards busy. It will buy you some time. Me? Emily asked, her heart pounding. You have to sneak down to the basement, Clara said, looking Emily straight in the eye. Get into Dr. Bennett's office and find Michael's real file. Then go to the server room, get the recordings from the last few hours. If you have a data cable, you can transfer them to your phone. Emily felt the pockets of her pajamas. She had her phone, but no cable. Use this, Clara said, unclipping a small USB flash drive from her uniform's keychain. Plug it into the server and copy the data. Be quick, Clara. I don't know how to do this. You can do it. Clara interrupted her. You have to do it. It's our only chance. After that, meet me at the basement emergency exit. We'll get out of here together. Nurse Clara had just assigned her an impossible mission to go down into the lion's den and steal evidence while her walled murderers were roaming freely upstairs. Just then, the phone in Emily's hand vibrated. The name on the screen made her blood run cold again. Dr. Alan Bennett. They're starting. Nurse Clara whispered, her eyes wide. Answer. Play your part. Weak, hysterical, submissive. Emily took a deep breath, swiped her finger across the screen to answer. Emily took a deep breath. The stale air of the locker room seemed to press in on her lungs. In her hand, the phone vibrated like an angry snake. Dr. Alan Bennett's name glowed on the screen. This was her stage. It was time to perform. Answer. Nurse Clara whispered. Remember, weak, hysterical, submissive. Emily swiped the green icon and brought the phone to her ear. She summoned all the pain and betrayal she had just felt and channeled it into a voice filled with fear, forcing a convincing sob. Yes, Doctor. Mrs. Emily. Thank God. Dr. Bennett's voice on the other end was so warm, so caring, so full of compassion, it made Emily want to throw up. Where are you? We've been waiting for you. I need to speak with you. I just arrived. Michael, my husband, how is he, Doctor? Emily sobbed, playing her part to perfection. There was a dramatic pause. He's a strong man, Mrs. Emily. The surgery was very difficult. We almost lost him. The hemorrhage was severe. Emily closed her eyes, picturing Michael walking out of the so healthy. My team and I managed to stop the bleeding. He's still very weak, but he's through the worst of it. He's in the recovery room near the surgical area on the 4th floor. Oh, thank God. Thank you, God, Emily cried. Again, this time feigning relief. Can I see him now? Yes, but there is another matter we must discuss immediately for the next steps. Dr. Bennett's tone became serious. Meet me in recovery, room 2. Yes, doctor. Right. Right away. Emily hung up. She looked at Nurse Clara. Her face hardened. It's time, Emily said. Remember, Clara said, grabbing Emily by the shoulders. They will present you with the papers. Do not sign. Make any excuse. Say you're in shock that you need to call family. Then get out of there. I'll handle the distraction. Go down to the basement, using the service elevator at the end of the hall near the emergency stairs. I'll wait for you at the basement exit. Bring the evidence. Emily nodded. She quietly opened the locker room door. The hallway was calm. She took one more deep breath and stepped out. She no longer walked like the terrified Emily. She walked like a woman on a mission, but on the outside, a devastated wife. She walked down the hall with a deliberately unsteady gait. She saw the door marked Recovery Room 2. She pushed it open gently. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of monitors beside the bed. And there they were. Dr. Bennett stood by the bed with a clipboard. The snake, Jessica, stood in a corner with an expression of fake concern on her face. And in the bed lay Michael. Emily almost let out a bitter laugh. His performance was flawless. Michael's face was made up to look pale, and 4 drip, which Emily was sure contained only saline, was taped to the back of his hand. An EKG monitor beside him beeped with a steady, convincing rhythm. Michael's eyes were closed, his chest rising and falling in a controlled breath to appear weak. Michael. Oh, honey. Emily rushed to the bedside and began to sob hysterically. She took his hand. It was warm and strong, not the hand of a man who had just brushed with death. Eiley had to use all her willpower not to crush her husband's fingers. Doctor, he's so pale, Emily said, turning to Dr. Bennett with eyes full of fake tears. Dr. Bennett patted her shoulder. He's lost a lot of blood, Mrs. Emily, but he will recover. As I told you, he's strong. Thank God. But Dr. Bennett said the word Emily was waiting for. There is a problem. Emily looked up, her face a mask of fear. What problem, doctor? While we were operating to stop the bleeding, Dr. Bennett explained, patiently, as if talking to a child. We found something unexpected, a rather large blood clot near his liver. It's unrelated to the accident, but it's extremely dangerous. It could rupture at any moment. Emily stared at him, her lips trembling. You mean we have to remove it immediately? Dr. Bennett said firmly. I've already scheduled a second emergency surgery for tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. A cleanup procedure. In the corner, Jessica suppressed a smile. Another operation, Emily whispered. It's for his safety. But Dr. Bennett flipped a page. On his clipboard, the procedure is very risky. It's a delicate area. There's a high risk of complications with the anesthesia and internal bleeding. I need your consent. Dr. Bennett held the clipboard out to Emily. On it was a sheet titled Consent for High Risk Surgery, and below it, a blank line waiting for her signature, the signature for her own death warrant. Or perhaps it was consent for Michael that they would later use as a pretext to operate on her. Whatever it was the trap. Suddenly, Michael's eyes fluttered open slightly. Emily, he whispered weakly like a third-rate actor. Sign it, honey. I trust Dr. Bennett. Jessica stepped forward. Mrs. Emily, Michael needs this. Please don't hesitate. It's for him. The 3 of them surrounded her. 3 wolves waiting for a lamb. Emily looked at the pen Dr. Bennett offered her. She looked at Michael's fake, sick face. She looked at Jessica's cynical smile. Emily, began to shake. Violently, this time half genuinely. I can't, Mrs. Emily. It's urgent, Dr. Bennett pressed, his smile beginning to fade. I can't, Emily cried, pushing the clipboard away. I feel dizzy. I'm nauseous. Another high-risk operation. I have to call his mother. I can't make this decision alone. She pretended to choke on a sob. I need some air. I need to go to the bathroom. Before Dr. Bennett or Jessica could react, Emily ran out of the room. She heard Dr. Bennett call her name. Mrs. Emily, wait. But Emily didn't stop. She ran down the hall, turned a corner, and rushed past the nurse's station. She didn't go to the nearest restroom. She ran toward the end of the hall to where Nurse Clara had directed her earlier. Just as she reached the final corner, a deafening fire alarm blared throughout the building. The sound was coming from an upper floor. Nurses began to emerge from rooms. Confused, a security guard ran toward the main elevators, speaking into his radio. It was Clara's distraction. In the chaos, no one noticed Emily. She saw a metal door that read, "Service. Elevator. Staff only." She swiped the card Clara had given her. The door clicked open. Emily stepped into the narrow oil-smelling metal cab. She pressed the B button for the basement. The elevator doors closed, muffling the chaotic sound of the alarm. Alone in the descending elevator, Emily leaned against the wall, her heart hammering at 1,000 beats per minute. She had won the first round, but now she was descending into the lion's den. The service elevator stopped with a soft ding, and the doors slid open. The sight before her was a stark contrast to the clean, well-lit surgical floor. The hospital basement was dark, cold, and smelled of dampness. Large pipes ran along the low ceiling, some dripping water onto the cracked concrete floor. The sound of the fire alarm from above was a distant muffled echo. Emily stepped out. Clara's keycard clutched tightly in her hand. She was alone in an eerie silence. She followed the faintly visible signs on the walls. Archives, maintenance, server room. At the end of the hallway, in a slightly better lit area, she saw them. 2 doors side by side. One read, Dr. Alan Bennett, Chief of Surgery. The other was a heavy metal door that read, Server room, restricted access. This was his den. Emily decided to go for Dr. Bennett's office first for Michael's medical report. She swiped the card. The heavy wooden door opened. Without a sound, she slipped inside. The office was surprisingly luxurious. Plush carpets, a massive mahogany desk, and towering bookshelves. It smelled of expensive coffee and leather. Malpractice money must be good. Emily rushed to the desk. The drawers were locked. She had no time to force them. Her gaze shot to the bookshelves. Among the thick medical tomes were rows of file binders. She read the labels. Research grants patients. She pulled out the one for patients. It wasn't there. She pulled another special projects and inside she found it. A thin unlabeled folder. She opened it. Her heart leaped. There it was. Michael's physical checkup report, dated 2 days ago. At the bottom, a large red stamp read optimal physical condition. Next to it was another thicker folder. Emily opened it. They were financial statements, a final notice from a bank, a bankruptcy filing for a multi-million-dollar debt under Michael's company name. Here was the physical proof and the motive. Emily pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely open the camera app. She photographed every page one by one. The checkup page, the optimal stamp, and the bank debt notices. Done. She put the files back exactly where she found them. Now for the cameras. She slipped out of the office, closing the door stealthily. She moved to the metal door of the server room. She swiped the card. The door clicked open. A blast of cold air and a loud humming sound greeted her. The room was filled with server racks blinking with green and yellow lights. She located a bank of monitors and video recorders in a corner. She read the labels. Lobby, hallway 4, and finally staff underground parking. Bingo. She took out the USB drive Clara had given her and inserted it into a USB port on the recorder. A progress bar appeared on the small monitor screen, copying Emily's heartbeat in time with the slowly climbing percentage 10%, 20%. She could see the real-time feed from the parking garage. It was deserted. 30%, 40%, please hurry. 50%, 60%. Suddenly, she heard a noise. Not inside the server room, but outside in the basement hallway. Footsteps. 2 people walking. Fast. Emily's heart stopped. The fire alarm must have been turned off. They We're looking for her. 70%, 80%. The footsteps were getting closer. They stopped right outside. She couldn't have gone far. She heard Dr. Bennett's sharp voice. You check my office. I'll check. The server room. Emily panicked. She looked at the screen. 95%. 98%. The doorknob on the server room door began to turn. 99%. Copy complete. Emily yanked the USB drive out. Just as the server room door swung open, Emily spun around, her body crashing into a server rack behind her. In the doorway stood Dr. Bennett, his eyes burning with rage. Behind him, Jessica smirked triumphantly. Looking for me, Emily? Jessica taunted, her voice sweet but deadly. It was a good game, Mrs. Emily, Dr. Bennett said, stepping into the room. He glanced at the video recorder, then at the USB drive in Emily's hand, hiding in the locker room, faking a hysterical fit, running to the basement. Did you really think we were that stupid? And Nurse Clara, Emily whispered. That little meddler, Dr. Bennett laughed. She's been taken care of. She won't be bothering anyone anymore. Emily's stomach twisted in terror. What had they done to Clara? You thought you were clever, huh? Jessica said, stepping forward and snatching the phone from Emily's hand. She looked at the photo gallery. Ah, our evidence. How cute. She deleted the photos one by one in front of Emily's eyes. Michael, the money all gone. But I have this, Emily shouted, holding up the USB drive, the recording of Michael walking in. You can't delete this. Dr. Bennett smiled. It was the coldest smile Emily had ever seen. Really? Take a good look at what you copied. Emily was confused. That footage. You worked so hard to copy, Dr. Bennett explained, as if instructing a student, is a loop of last night's recording, prepared especially for anyone who came snooping. Emily looked at the USB drive in her hand. It felt worthless now. And the files from my office, Dr. Bennett continued. That medical report was a fake copy we planted there on purpose as bait. The originals are already destroyed. It was a trap. Her entire flight to the basement had been a trap. They had let her escape the recovery room on purpose. They had led her right here. Welcome to the trap, Mrs. Emily, Dr. Bennett said. Now you have two choices. You either sign the consent form willingly. Jessica stepped forward, pulling something from behind her back, a large syringe filled with a clear liquid. Or, we'll make you sign it, Jessica said. And after that, we can proceed with your second procedure. Right here, right now. The cold server room suddenly felt hot and suffocating. The walls of humming server racks seemed to be closing in on her, trapping her with her two predators. Dr. Bennett's words had hit her like a hammer. The flash drive was a fake. The photos on her phone were deleted. Nurse Clara had been neutralized. She was alone. Every step she had thought was a clever move was actually a path they had laid out for her. She had danced to their tune, and now she had reached the end of the song, right in the jaws of the wolf. Jessica smiled, a smile of pure satisfaction. She twirled the large syringe in her hand, the clear liquid inside glinting under the fluorescent lights. Come on, Emily, Jessica hissed. Take your pick. You sign nicely or we put you down for a little nap first. Dr. Bennett presented the clipboard again. The line for her signature seemed to mock her. Playtime is over. Mrs. Emily, we have a schedule to keep. Emily's mind raced. The fear was there, a cold and paralyzing fear, but beneath it, the fury she had felt earlier in the locker room began to burn again. It was no longer an ember, but an inferno consuming the fear. They thought they had won. They thought she was the submissive, stupid wife. They were dead wrong. If the new evidence is fake, I'll have to use the old. Emily held up her hands, feigning a tremor. She looked at Dr. Bennett with pleading eyes. Okay. Okay, I lose. You've won. Dr. Bennett smiled faintly. A wise choice. I'll sign, Emily said, her voice. But please, just let me make one quick call. To my mother-in-law. I just want to hear her voice one more time. Jessica snorted. Oh, how dramatic. Dr. Bennett seemed to consider it for a moment. No, calls. Sign now. He was growing impatient. At least give me my phone back then, Emily said, pointing to her phone in Jessica's hand. My family contacts are on there. I just want to see a picture of my mom. Jessica rolled her eyes but looked at Dr. Bennett, who gave a slight nod. Give it to her. She can't call anyone from this basement anyway. We've blocked all signals. Of course, they had planned everything. Jessica tossed the phone at Emily's feet. There, Emily bent down. Slowly, every movement calculated to look defeated and broken. She picked up the phone. Her hands were trembling, but this time she was in control. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with adrenaline. She held the phone, looking at the dark screen. Thank you, she whispered. She straightened up and in an instant, her entire demeanor changed. Her previously slumped back was now straight. Her pleading eyes were now a hard, cold stare. Her previously pale face was now set in a tight mask. Dr. Bennett and Jessica sensed the change. Their smiles faltered slightly. You're right, Emily said, her voice flat and cold. It was a good game, a good bait. But you got one thing wrong. And what's that? Jessica sneered. You thought I discovered my husband's rotten core tonight, Emily said. But I've been smelling this garbage for months. She unlocked her phone. Jessica had deleted the photos from the gallery, but Jessica didn't know how to find a hidden audio folder. Before I sign, Emily said, I'd like you to listen to this. Think of it as a lullaby. She pressed play. For a second, nothing happened. Then a voice filled the server room. Michael's voice clear and crisp. No, I don't care about your gratitude. Just make sure the consulting fee is in the Swiss account by the end of the month. 2 million. Clean it. I don't want to know how. Just make it happen. The recording was from 3 months ago. A call between Michael and a business partner. Michael was arranging bribes and money laundering for his latest construction project. Emily had secretly recorded it while he was arguing in his home office, thinking she might use it as leverage in a future divorce. She never imagined she'd use it to save her life. Dr. Bennett and Jessica froze. Their faces went pale. That Dr. Bennett stammered. That has nothing to do with this. Oh, it has everything to do with it, Doctor, Emily said, taking a step forward. This proves my husband's character. It proves he's a criminal. And this recording combined with my testimony will make the police investigate all of his business, including his insurance dealings with you. You're not walking out of this room alive, Jessica hissed, raising the syringe. Probably not, Emily said, her gaze defiant. But this phone, she held the phone up high, is live streaming our entire conversation in this room from the moment you walked in. It was a bluff. The signal really was cut. She couldn't be streaming anything, but they didn't know that. And this stream, Emily continued, her voice rising, is connected to the cloud. If my heart stops or if I don't input a passcode in the next 5 minutes, this recording, the recording of your confession, of your threats, along with the recording of Michael's money laundering, will be automatically sent to my lawyer, the editor-in-chief of the national newspaper, and my mother-in-law, Dr. Dr. Bennett's eyes widened in terror. The bluff had worked. He bought it. Stop her, Dr. Bennett yelled, panicking. Jessica, inject her now. Jessica snapped out of her stupor. She screamed and lunged at Emily, the syringe aimed like a dagger. Emily stumbled back, crashing into the cold server racks. There was nowhere to run. She threw her hands up to protect her face, bracing for the sting of the needle. Stop. A new voice boomed in the subterranean space. A voice full of fury and authority. The server room door, which Dr. Bennett had closed, flew open. In the doorway stood Michael. He was still in his fake surgical scrubs. His face was red with rage, his eyes burning. He didn't look like a weak patient. He looked like a king who had just discovered his underlings had betrayed him. What the hell are you all doing down here? Michael roared, his voice echoing. The plan was the recovery room, not the basement. He stopped short, taking in the scene before him. Panicked Dr. Bennett, a frozen Jessica with a syringe in her hand, and Emily, standing tall in front of a server, holding her phone like a weapon. Michael looked at Emily and the fury on His face slowly morphed into surprise and then into a cold mask of hatred. He finally understood his wife knew everything. A standoff for people in the humming server room. The three predators were now eyeing each other with distrust. Their prey stood in the center holding the trump card. Michael stepped inside, his eyes never leaving. Emily. So, he said, his voice dangerously low. You knew. I knew. Everything, Michael, Emily replied, her voice equally cold. The fake operation, the insurance, your plan to have me killed tomorrow on the operating table. Michael turned sharply to Dr. Bennett. You said she wouldn't know. You said you took care of Nurse Clara. She trapped us. Dr. Bennett stammered, pointing at Emily. She faked the hysterical fit. And she has a recording. An old recording of you about your business deals. Michael's face hardened. What recording? Play it again, Emily. He had to be sure. She had to turn them against each other. Emily pressed play. Again. Michael's voice ordering the laundering of $2 million once again filled the room. Michael closed his eyes. He knew that recording. He knew exactly when it had taken place, but he had no idea Emily had recorded it. You, Michael hissed, looking at Emily. So, this was your plan to trap me with that? That's just the start, Emily said, needing to keep pushing. That just proves your character. But this, she held up the phone again, is the proof of your crimes tonight. What do you mean? Michael demanded. This phone, Emily repeated her bluff, has recorded every word in this room. Dr. Bennett's confession about taking care of Clara. Jessica's threats to inject me, and now you here confirming the plan. Jessica. And Dr. Bennett took a step back, but Michael laughed a dry, terrible laugh. Do you take me for an idiot, Emily? This is a basement. No signal, no cloud, no lawyers. Nothing has been sent. Michael moved closer. Whatever is on that phone will be destroyed right here with you. Emily's heart sank. He knew her bluff had failed. Michael knew her too well. Give me that phone, Michael ordered, holding out his hand. No, Emily whispered. Give it to me. Michael lunged. He was faster than Emily expected. His hand clamped down on her wrist, twisting it brutally. Emily cried out in pain. The phone slipped from her grasp, skittering across the concrete floor, the screen cracking. Michael smirked, raising his foot to smash it. Game over, honey. Too late. A new voice, strong and certain, came from the doorway. They all turned. In the doorway stood Nurse Clara. She was unharmed. She hadn't been neutralized. She stood tall, her face filled with righteous indignation. And she was not alone. Behind her stood two burly hospital security guards with stern faces. Michael's eyes widened. Dr. Bennett stumbled backward. No, impossible. Did you really think I was that stupid, Doctor? Clara said, stepping into the room. Did you think I would send Mrs. Emily down into your den alone? What are you talking about? Dr. Bennett stammered. The fire alarm earlier. Clara explained. It wasn't a distraction for the guards. It was a distraction for you. While you were busy chasing Emily, these gentlemen and I, she gestured to the guards, went to the central control room. We disabled your fake loop on this server. We took control. Clara pointed to a security camera in the corner of the server room ceiling. Its tiny red light was blinking. It's been recording every word you've said in this room, Clara said. Every threat, every confession has been recorded in real time by the hospital's head of security. Michael, Dr. Bennett, and Jessica stared in horror at that camera. They were caught, utterly and completely caught. And that flash drive, Emily added, pointing to the drive still on the recorder's console. That was the real bait. Bait to keep you busy. While you were chasing me, Clara copied the real footage of your arrival. You walking in calmly through the staff lobby, laughing with Jessica. We have it all. Secure. Silence. The hum of the servers was the only sound. Michael's face was ashen. His perfect plan had crumbled. Dr. Bennett was the first to break. He knew. His career, his life was over. His eyes darted around frantically. He saw the syringe Jessica had dropped when Michael came in. With a desperate roar, Dr. Bennett lunged for it. You won't take me. He didn't go for Emily. He went for the one person with the technical proof. Nurse Clara, Clara, look out, Emily screamed. But Clara didn't move. She had anticipated it. As Dr. Bennett charged at her, Clara didn't step back. She stepped forward, pulling her own syringe from her scrub's pocket. Much smaller, but just as effective. This, Clara said calmly. Just as Dr. Bennett came into range, plunging the needle directly into the doctor's thick thigh is a powerful sedative. Maximum dose. You know the effects, don't you, Doctor? Dr. Bennett stopped dead. His eyes widened in shock. He looked down at the syringe embedded in his thigh. He tried to pull it out, but his hands began to tremble. His legs gave way. He slurred. He crumpled to the floor like a sack of potatoes, his eyes rolling back. Unconscious. Jessica screamed hysterically as she saw her accomplice fall. She lost her composure completely. She didn't attack. She turned and tried to push her way past the security guards to flee, but the second guard easily grabbed her arm and snapped a pair of handcuffs on her. Only Michael was left. He stood there staring, in a daze at the collapsed Dr. Bennett, the sobbing Jessica, and Emily, who was looking at him with fearless eyes. A blind rage took over. If he was going down, he was taking Emily with him. This is all your fault, he roared. He forgot the guards, forgot the camera. His eyes saw only Emily. Michael launched himself at her, his hands reaching to strangle his wife. The room erupted into chaos. Michael's furious scream, "This is all your fault," echoed off the humming servers. His eyes were bloodshot, pupils dilated with adrenaline and pure hatred. He no longer saw the security guards or cared about the recording camera. His sole focus was Emily. He surged forward. The first security guard, the one not holding Jessica, reacted quickly. "Sir, don't move," he yelled, stepping in to block Michael. But Michael, powered by the desperation of a man who has lost everything, had unexpected strength. He drove his shoulder into the guard's chest, sending the man staggering back. The second guard couldn't let go of the struggling Jessica. In a split second, Michael was past the defense. He reached Emily, his hands outstretched. He didn't grab her throat. He roughly seized the collar of her clothes, yanking hard. Emily's head snapped forward, and she let out a cry of pain. Michael's other hand clawed at her shoulder, his nails ripping the fabric of her pajamas. "I'll kill you," he snarled, his face inches from hers. But Emily was not the same woman from 3 hours ago. The paralyzing fear was gone, replaced by a primal instinct for survival. As Michael pulled her, Emily didn't go limp. She drove her knee up with all her strength, striking Michael in the thigh. He grunted in pain, but didn't let go. If anything, it enraged him further. He began to shake her brutally. "Let her go," Clara shouted, running to help. It was then that the first security guard recovered. He saw Michael attacking Emily. He gave no more warnings. He lunged from behind, wrapping his massive arms around Michael's chest in a powerful bear hug. "You're under arrest. You are under arrest." Michael's body was lifted off the floor, but his grip on Emily's clothes didn't give. Emily was dragged up with him, nearly choking. "Let go, let go," Emily yelled, clawing at her own clothes in an attempt to break free from Michael's grasp. Michael now directed his fury at the guard, holding him, struggling, kicking, and elbowing backward. "Get off me, you son of a she's mine. Calm down. Do not resist," the guard commanded, trying to wrestle Michael to the ground. But Michael was too feral. He twisted with all his might, trying to break the hold. It was a desperate, violent, and reckless move. The brutal turn succeeded in breaking the guard's hold, but it also threw Michael himself off balance. He stumbled backward, his left foot caught on the leg of the unconscious Dr. Bennett, who was lying on the floor. Emily, Clara, and the two security guards watched it all in horrific slow motion. Michael fell backward. He didn't fall onto the smooth floor. He fell directly toward the main server rack, a solid black metal frame filled with heavy hardware. His back hit the rack first, but the momentum of his fall was too strong. His head snapped back. The nape of his neck and the base of his skull connected with the sharp steel edge of the server frame. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't a thud so much as a dry, sickening crack, a horrible crunch like a dead branch snapping. Silence. All sound in the room ceased. Jessica stopped screaming. The guards froze. The constant hum of the servers suddenly sounded deafeningly loud. Michael didn't slide to the floor. He was left suspended in an odd sitting position, his back propped against the rack, his head leaning to one side at an unnatural angle. His eyes were open, staring straight ahead, looking at Emily. But the look was different. The burning fury was gone. What was left was pure shock and confusion. "Michael," Emily whispered, taking a step forward. The guard who had been holding him now approached cautiously. "Mr. Michael," he yelled to his partner. "Paramd, get paramedics to the basement." Michael opened his mouth. No sound came out, just a shallow whistle of air. He tried to raise a hand. It didn't move. He tried to move his legs. They remained still. A pure absolute terror, a different kind of terror than rage, now filled his eyes. He looked at Emily, tried to speak again. His voice was a gritty whisper. "I can't move. My legs," he whispered again. "My hands. I can't feel anything." Emily looked at her husband, the man who had tried to kill her seconds ago. The man who had plotted her death on an operating table. The man who had faked being critically injured. He was now truly paralyzed. "Oh my God," Clara whispered, covering her mouth. Emily felt nothing. Not pity, not satisfaction, just a cold emptiness. She looked into the man's eyes, now filled with tears of genuine terror. The irony was too cruel, too swift, too perfect. Karma had arrived, not in a courtroom, not in a jail cell, but right here in the cold server room, in the middle of his own evil plan. Michael was trapped. Truly trapped, not behind the bars of a prison, but in the prison of his own body. "Don't touch him," the security guard shouted, seeing Emily move closer. "Don't touch his neck. Let the medical team handle it." Emily stopped. She just stood there, staring at her now helpless husband. The healthy man had become a real patient, far more severe than he had ever pretended to be. The server room doors opened again. This time it was the actual head of security, followed by 2 uniformed police officers he had called the moment he saw the live feed from the room. They stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Jessica handcuffed and sobbing. Dr. Bennett unconscious on the floor. Michael paralyzed against a server rack, and Emily standing in the ruins of her life. Her clothes torn but her posture erect. The game was over. Dawn came slowly. The first rays of sun filtered through the tall windows of the hospital lobby, but the light felt strange and distant to Emily. She was sitting in a quiet staff break room wrapped in a thick hospital blanket. Nurse Clara sat beside her, holding a cup of hot tea another nurse had brought them. Neither of them spoke. They had told the story over and over again, to the head of security, to the police. The server room was now a crime scene. Dr. Bennett, as soon as he regained consciousness, was handcuffed to a bed. Jessica was taken away in a police car before sunrise, her hysterical screams echoing in the empty parking lot, and Michael the medical team had arrived with extreme caution. They fitted him with a neck brace, moved him to a spinal board, and rushed him to the ER, then to MRI, and finally to the trauma ICU. The diagnosis came as the sun rose, a C4 burst fracture. His spinal cord was severed. He was quadriplegic, completely paralyzed from the neck down. He could breathe on his own, but with difficulty. He could move his eyes and some facial muscles, but that was it forever. The next few days were a blur for Emily. She stayed at her parents' house, refusing to speak to anyone except her lawyer. The news broke. The Lakeshore General Redo scandal. The faces of Dr. Bennett, Jessica, and Michael were on every news site. Justice was swift and merciless. The video and audio from the server room was irrefutable evidence. Dr. Bennett faced the most charges: conspiracy to commit murder, gross medical malpractice, insurance fraud, and assault. Clara's testimony opened a Pandora's box of years of other suspicious surgical complications. He was sentenced to life in prison, stripped of his medical license, his name ruined in infamy. Jessica, as an accomplice, was also found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Her beautiful, tear-streaked face in court did not sway the judge. She received a 20-year prison sentence. Clara was hailed as a hero. After the hospital completely overhauled its board of directors, she was offered a new position, head supervisor of patient ethics and compliance. She accepted, determined to make sure no one like Dr. Bennett could ever operate again, and Emily filed for divorce the same day. Michael was moved from the ICU. She attached the evidence of the attempted murder and the old audio recording of the money laundering. The court granted the divorce immediately in the defendant's absence. All assets were frozen. The life insurance policy was declared null and void. The multimillion-dollar debt Michael had created remained his, or rather the responsibility of the state appointed trustee managing his seized assets. Emily was free financially, legally, and emotionally. A month later, Emily decided she needed to close the chapter for good. She paid Michael one visit. It would be her last. He was no longer in a luxury hospital. He was in a long-term care facility, state-run for inmates with special medical needs. His room was small and smelled of antiseptic and despair. He lay in a specialized bed, his head immobilized by braces. Only his eyes moved, staring at the ceiling. A nurse was changing his catheter bag when Emily walked in. Michael's eyes darted to the door. He saw her. Emily was wearing a simple light blue dress. She looked calm and healthy. Michael's eyes narrowed. A pure, impotent hatred burned in them. He tried to speak. A gurgling sound came from his throat. He hated her. He blamed her for everything. Emily walked slowly to the side of his bed. She stood in silence for a moment, looking at the man she once loved, the man who had betrayed her in the vilest way possible. She felt no pity, no anger. She just felt the end. I came to say one thing, Emily said softly, her voice calm and clear in the quiet room. Michael stared at her, his eyes bloodshot. You wanted to put me on an operating table, didn't you? Emily continued. You wanted me to be helpless, dependent on machines, so you could start a new life. Michael made another gurgling sound, louder this time. Now, Emily said, leaning in just a little closer. You're the one trapped in a bed. You're the one who depends on others for everything forever. Isn't that ironic? Emily straightened up. Enjoy the rest of your life, Michael. She turned and walked out of the room. She walked down the hall, past the guards, and out the main doors of the facility. Outside, the sun was shining brightly. The morning air was fresh. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. For the first time in a long time, she felt free.